How are you doing, folks? Sorry I haven't posted on this in a while. Things have been a little bit mental with new staff in the clinic and new protocols to try and get set up, and we've been testing a couple of teams for our athlete screening process. So yeah, it's all been quite busy. So this video is going to be on marathon training and how to get to the start line. We are starting to get a lot of runners coming in, getting concerned about little niggles that they're having, how they're going to maintain their training schedules, and tips and tricks and advice on how to actually get through the training and get to the start line, because that seems to be the hardest problem. So there's a couple of things that we're going to cover on this today, and they're going to be common questions that generally people ask us. So number one, people generally ask us is, do I need to warm up before I do my runs? Technically, the answer is no if you're fit and strong and healthy and you have a good training background. But if you don't have a good training background and you're getting into it, you should leave maybe 4 or 5 minutes to do a warm up before you do your long runs. There's no point in going sitting in a chair and then going out and trying to do a long run without actually trying to warm up some of your muscles. Your muscles are going to be dormant, they're going to be dead from sitting on a chair during the day. They need that little bit of stimulation to actually get warmed up. Professional athletes do it for a reason. You may not be a professional athlete, but at the same time, it's always good practice to do a warm up. So the next question is, what type of warm up should we do? Well, generally, there's so many different exercises you can actually do. But what we generally tend to focus on is glute strength and tendon stiffness. So if you can get our nervous system firing on all cylinders and firing nice and fast, they'll be able to control the perturbations of your foot landing on the ground. So you're able to control your joints better. We'll do another video on that, on warm-ups for marathon trainers, marathon training. But the key thing is here that if you're injured, you definitely should be doing more of a warm-up than your shorter runs. And what I mean by that is, if you're just coming back from injury and it's your first time going for a run after it, I would spend 15 to 20 minutes trying to warm up your muscles in your legs, doing exercises that you've seen with your physios, squats, lunges, hops, single leg landings, step ups, anything you can do to probably get your system primed for the running. Some of them may not be as specific for your run, but at the same time, you're still warming up your system and encouraging it to work correctly. If you don't do a warm up and next thing you come back from an injury, and this is what I see the problem with physio or with runners doing all the time, is that I've had an injury, I'll give it 2 weeks, I'll go back out running, oh fuck, I'm still sore again. And then that's just not the way it works. Unfortunately, if you go out and you have a bit of a niggle, while the inflammation settles down, normally 9 times out of 10 you're going to have some biomechanical issue that hasn't been corrected, and hence you're going to go back and being sore again. And that'll go from knee pain, especially with Achilles tendon problems and plantar fascia pain, that you're going to end up sore with it. So it's always good to have good warm-up routine before you go out, especially if you're coming back from injury. For a recovery side of things, then again, this is getting into a routine, and I know you're doing an awful lot of hours on the road and it's taking up a lot of your time and it's going to take you away from family and stuff like that, but it's always good to try and keep in mind the days that you're not running, do a little stretching session. And people are always wondering, oh, what do I do? And people get confused with what to do because there's so much information out there. Quite simply, just do anything. If you were to try, if your legs are getting quite sore, get on the bike for 5 or 10 minutes, try and flush them out, then do a stretching session. If you don't know what stretching sessions do, there are hundreds of follow along YouTube videos that you can try. And it doesn't have to be perfect, you just have to get something done. A lot of people won't tend to do these recovery sessions because they don't know what they're doing. But literally, if you're doing anything and doing anything, it will help the body recover. The ideal zone for you to help this recover is going to be your zone 2. I wouldn't even go into your zone 3, but if you're working around that zone 2, where your heart rate is sitting at maybe 40, 50, 60%, that's at the higher end of it, and that's absolutely fine. And you're getting the blood flow into the muscles, you're trying to help them recover, you're trying to get your nervous system recover as well. So yes, especially after your long runs, the day after you do 2-hour run or an hour run or whatever it's going to be, just spend half an hour, just get out, start moving, even a bit of a long walk for 30 or 40 minutes. It might be more time on your feet, or if your knees or your ankles or anything else is getting sore after that, maybe just spend maybe 20 or 30 minutes on a bike just flushing out the legs. Again, I'm not being specific to here because everybody else is different. Everybody needs a different stimulus. So if you have somebody who is a block layer and then they're training for a marathon, I'm going to give them completely different advice if you're an office worker and training for a marathon. But if you're an office worker that's ran 4 or 5 marathons before, that's a different story because you have a good training history. Second of all, if you run out of time during the week and you don't get your session done, do not try cram it into the next week. If you try to cram it into the next week, you're going to end up in bother, because then the week before you will have done less mileage, and then this week you're going to have done way more mileage, and then the week after that it's going to be less again. So you're just spiking the load. Just forget about the session. Try and get better organized for your sessions the next week and go from there. Do not chase it. Do not try and cram it into the next week, so you just end up in bother. And then finally, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So do tend to go quite slowly at this, especially if it's your first one. What I would advise is stick to a good training plan. If you're having a niggle early on in it, do not ignore it, because you're going to end up in September, where it's 3 weeks towards the marathon. You still have this niggle and it's getting worse because you're increasing the mileage. Be smart, go get it seen to. And when you get it seen to, you need to follow the advice. Most of the good physios will be able to guide you back to training quite easily, with some general exercises and some running drills, and should be able to look at your running stride and your running gait to see if we can tweak 1 or 2 things there. Yes, tweaking your gait is a big issue, but we can do it in a manner where you start to incorporate it into your running quite slowly, so you're not in as much pain, and then you're running more efficiently. And then finally, if you can't run, it's not the end of the world. There are off-feet exercises that would just be able to maintain your fitness, maybe not improve it, but there's always ways to, so you don't lose your fitness. And as an example, if you sat on your butt for 2 to 3 weeks after doing a shitload of training, you're not really going to lose that much fitness, to be honest. You lose a little bit where it'll take 2 or 3 sessions for your body to get back up to where it was before, but you're not going to be back down starting from the start if you take 3 weeks off or 2 weeks off because of an injury and then go on a bike or go on a row or go swimming. So yeah, look, there's a bit of information in there to be able to digest for it, but the main thing is, if you focus, stick to the plan, work on your recovery on your off days. If you have a niggle, go get it seen to. Don't cram in your sessions if you miss one during the week. And remember, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So you don't need to be getting to your 30k or 32k 6 or 7 weeks before the marathon, so you can kind of maintain that pace. Just build it up slowly. Our team are always here to give advice. We have a running injury assessment, running assessment appointments becoming available now in the next 1 or 2 weeks, where you will have a mobility section. You'll have a biomechanical analysis where we're looking at your running gait and your stride length and how that foot is contacting the ground. And then finally, we're going to put you on the force stakes and see what kind of force you can produce. See if you can absorb the force of your body weight landing onto your foot, you're quite good. But if you're actually struggling to kind of absorb that force, your ankle, your knee, or your hip is going to be taking more of the brunt of it. And there can be a few things we can do to prevent that from getting worse. So keep an eye out for that. Best of luck with your training. And yeah, if you have any questions, just give us a shout. Okay, take care.